I learned to be friendly with everyone, to be honest. I didn't choose a side. And I realized that the only way that you can get things done is by being aligned or being friendly to everyone, not just one group of folks.
That's Tiffany Ford. She's a former school board trustee in Toronto, and she didn't go into party politics. There was really just one thing driving her to go out and knock on doors for votes.
It's like myself wanting to make changes in my community. And because I'm not aligned with anyone, I need to have enough numbers, right? So the only way I can have enough numbers is if I'm cool with a number of people.
I'm Nanaba Duncan, and you're listening to Black on the Ballot. Today I'm asking, what does it mean to be a politician if it's not about taking sides? Tiffany Ford became a school board trustee in 2014 and ran for city council in Toronto in 2018. For her, political life is not about political parties. It's about serving her community. That community is Jane and Finch. It's a high-density neighborhood in the northwest corner of Toronto, and it is a true cultural meeting place. People there are from all over the world. They're from across the Caribbean, Vietnam, Iraq, Nigeria. 30% of its residents identify as Black, which is 3 times higher than the whole city of Toronto. On average, there are lower rates of home ownership and higher rates of poverty. Media coverage of the neighborhood is usually about crime or something negative, and that stigma doesn't allow for the very real stories of joy, resilience, success, and the community that exists there. Tiffany Ford would know. She has lived, worked, and advocated for the neighborhood her whole life. In 2024, Carleton University and Operation Black Vote Canada interviewed Black Canadians who had run for and served in elected office. A lot of them shared that they were motivated to run for office because of first-hand experiences with marginalization or the things they saw happening in the Black community. They were shaped by conversations they had around their dinner tables growing up, their parents' own struggles to immigrate and resettle in Canada, and a desire to make change for future generations. That fits Tiffany's story to a T. When Tiffany served as school trustee, her political ambitions were focused on making her home better for friends, family, and neighbors. So we decided to visit her in her community. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We met Tiffany in a community center called Peach. It's a converted warehouse painted in bright peach, purples, and greens. The colors match Tiffany's high-top sneakers.
I am the current interim executive director at Promoting Education and Community Health, which is PEACH, an organization that's been around for over 35 years in the Jane and Finch community. It's over 4,000 square feet. It is a phenomenal space. It's now a community hub, a place where people could feel safe. It's in what we considered neutral territory.
When Tiffany says neutral, she means free of gang or group affiliations.
Anyone from any different communities or pockets of the Jane and Finch community can come here. So we service children all the way to seniors, and it's just a phenomenal space.
It is an impressive space. It reminded me of the community centers I went to when I was growing up. There was space for people to meet, a lounge area. Tiffany showed us a computer room for youth. And then farther in, they ran a food program out of a well-stocked pantry and kitchenette.
Jane and Finch is my home. It's been my forever home. And it's the place that has cultivated me. And I've also had all of my career experiences in this community. So Jane and Finch is the place that I'm probably most passionate about. And it probably is the place that continues to drive me and motivate me.
What was your upbringing like? Where did you live?
So I lived at 5 Needle Furway, which is a Toronto community housing building.
And who did you grow up with?
So my mom is a woman from Grenada, the island of Grenada. She came here when she was 21 years old. during those, 70s, where I guess a lot of like Caribbean women would come and be nannies. And then she was able to get a PSW, or they called it healthcare aid, for 39 years. My mom worked in that nursing home.
How do you think this shaped you?
Oh, it definitely shaped me. When I went to York University, I ended up doing a double majors in communications and sociology. And I learned so much about messaging and about resonating with people. And most importantly, I also learned about, social constructs. I took a lot of African history electives and Caribbean history electives. And for me, it taught me a lot more about myself and the fact that, you're kind of this product of your society, right? You may live in social housing, you may live in a community that's more marginalized and stigmatized. But all of these things are, socially constructed, and they're barriers that are there, but you can also navigate those barriers. So for me, I was really, really keen on focusing on how to navigate those barriers and how to influence others and my peers, my family, about the fact that they don't have to fold into those molds that people have of us.
So I see that you're learning about yourself in this stage, but what was it about that made you want to think about other people and serve your community?
That's the joy in my life, to be honest, to see tangible changes in people's lives, knowing that I can impact someone's life where they're actually happier, or there's an actual feeling of, joy. That's actually what brings me the most joy in my life.
And how did this move into running as school board trustee?
Yeah, that was like a big fluke, to be honest. And I think it was seeing the opportunity. Well, first of all, I remember meeting my school board trustee, who was a Black woman, in grade 5 in my graduation, and just remembering her as a Black woman, with authority. And I didn't know what a school board trustee was, but I knew that she was important enough to give me my, my diploma or whatever it was in grade 5. And then remembering never seeing her again until I actually took her position. So it was remembering, going to Westview and learning that it's actually considered the worst secondary school in all of Toronto District School Board on the Learning Opportunity Index. And knowing that we've always felt that way. And just to know that I was considered the worst school, I wanted to make changes. I also played sports and everything, and having family just kind of watching me standing up or sitting on a dirt without like bleachers. All of those things I wanted to change and was able to change when I became a school board trustee. So the reason why I wanted to run was just to make the changes, really, to the schools. And I was really thinking about my high school and how it felt to go there.
So you wanted to make change at that school?
I wanted to make changes at that school. Yeah. And so that was the focus.
So now you're deciding, you make this decision, and now you have to campaign. So what was the campaign trail like? Can you describe that?
Yeah, so I knew that you had to campaign, but I didn't really realize how political it was. So because I decided to have a marketing company, it was a PR marketing company right out of university, because I had way too much anxiety to look for jobs. The stigma is real, like thinking about your, the applications and where you live, living in Toronto housing. I did not want to go through that, to be honest with you. I had that PR company for 10 years, and I just was kind of hustling for 10 years. I used creativity and learned to do things by myself, like learned to create flyers, learned to create websites, learned about marketing, learned about strategy, learned about networking, learned about so many different things. And all of that was useful in creating a campaign. I started on my own. I did it all by myself.
So no one taught you anything?
No.
Did you ask for help?
No. The only help I asked for was financial help. And so I created my flyers. I knew my community, and I, created flyers for different folks. Not all flyers were the same. Some were for the Vietnamese community. Some were for the folks that were Indian. I also knew my community. I decided when I had my face and when I didn't have my picture on my campaign. So there's so many different ways that I strategized, but the most important thing that I did was knocked on every single door, even by myself.
And what was that like?
It was great. It was great to realize that you don't really know your community until you knock on every single door to see who's there living as a neighbor, So I was able to knock every single door and, resonated with them about voting for me. And nobody knew what a trustee was. That's probably the most important thing. It was more about if you vote, there's also a trustee when you're voting for mayor and city councilor. And I'm also there. So just look for Ford. So it really depended on who opened that door.
So how did you change your tactics depending on the person you saw?
I just changed it. It's not even a thought. It was just something I've learned as someone who had a business that no one knew about, that started from the ground up in my, bedroom in Toronto community housing. It's just a tactic that I've learned.
Can you give an example?
Okay, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so as a Black woman, knowing that you are working with predominantly males, it's easy to speak their lingo, easy to speak a language that they might understand. I play golf, right? I've learned it where I could be at a door speaking to an Asian man who doesn't speak English. I've learned the word vote in Vietnamese. I've learned the word vote in Italian. I had to find those words, learn it, vote por mí, vote. I just had a bunch of tools in my back pocket where I can do that. But most importantly, I was knocking on the doors. I was running against a multimillionaire, right? Someone who was actually in the newspaper as a big fish. They call them a big fish versus the small fishes, right? And they had a lot of money. So I had to learn how to deal with those big fishes and the men that were, running for the school board trustee position. When I won by a landslide with my $5,000 versus a huge campaign, I was happy. I thought, great, I can fix the schools.
Tiffany Ford, as you may have noticed, is not your typical politician. As a school board trustee, she was focused on getting things done. But she noticed that other trustees were approaching the job in a different way. School board trustees don't generally campaign on or advertise their political affiliations. If you look up how to become a school board trustee in Ontario, where Tiffany is from, you won't find anything about political parties, but that doesn't mean parties don't shape what happens. Many parties see school boards as a springboard to other levels of office, like a training ground for a federal or provincial office where party politics dominate. In that climate, trustees, especially those with ambitions for higher office, are going to consider who is on whose team. In Tiffany's case, this dynamic translated into feeling pressure to align with political parties and their interests. So you're doing your work and you're learning that the people around you are attached to different parties, and you're seeing this as political. What do you mean when you say political?
Yeah, people are actually card-carrying political party members, and they are aligned. And so when they vote for motions or what have you, they vote collectively or they work together. So people like me are just kind of on the sideline okay. I just came in. I thought, it was actually a time where we had a fresh new slate of trustees. But they came in prepared and ready. And I'm just I didn't know it was like this. I thought it was just helping your schools.
What were some of the issues you wanted to tackle that other people hadn't been addressing?
So for me, like, I want to focus on things that I know are actually impacting us. And I think most of my, like all of my emotions were focused on Black people. If it wasn't about Latin American month instead of Hispanic heritage, focusing on Afro-Latin folks or Latinx people, or, Somali Heritage Month or Islamic Heritage Month, or like some other, like focusing on, suspensions and expulsions hearings, being the first Black chair of the disciplinary hearing, being there because like literally 90% of students with my own eyes were Black. And then you have all of these old white retirees sitting there saying, oh, let's expel that kid from this school to give them a fresh start. That is not giving them a fresh start, not realizing the severeness of what they're doing. So, yeah, I didn't know it was political. I thought, great, I can fix the schools. I was just here, like the only person, first of all, the only Black female. Secondly, young. Thirdly, the only one who went to the schools that I represent. I thought it was unfortunate. So I realized afterwards it was more of a kind of like a stepping stone situation for like another political position. Or it's kind of like a way where political parties get in to like the school board system.
So what did you make of that when you learned all of this?
I thought it was sad. I thought, whoa, this system sucks. Like, we need more people like me. And it's just really unfortunate that it's not like that.
So let's talk about this system. Historically, Black people were formally excluded from political life. Despite the barriers, they have run for and won elected office for more than 150 years. But running for office isn't the only way to be political. And when you break down the information based on race, it gets interesting. Data from Statistics Canada shows that 70% of Black Canadians engage in political activities, not elected activities, but things like signing petitions, going to demonstrations, or speaking out at public meetings. Black Canadians' rate of political activity is the highest of any racially marginalized group in this country. That same study from Statistics Canada also showed that 64% of Black Canadians participate in at least one community group or association. Again, the highest of any racially marginalized group. So far, Tiffany has told us a lot about her drive and her ambition to serve her community and to change and improve the schools she went to. When Carleton University and Operation Black Vote Canada surveyed Black Canadians who had run for office, 60% of those who ran for school board said their reason for running was to represent communities without a voice. So Tiffany isn't unusual. She is right on trend. It should have been enough for Tiffany to just want to get in there and get things done for her community. But politics does not always work that way.
I learned to be friendly with everyone, to be honest. I didn't choose a side. And I realized that the only way that you can get things done is by being aligned or being friendly to everyone, not just one group of folks. Because to me, it was a bunch of people versus each other, but then it's like myself wanting to make changes in my community. And because I'm not aligned with anyone, I need to have enough numbers, right? So the only way I can have enough numbers is if I'm cool with a number of people.
What were the changes you wanted to make that couldn't be done on the trustee level?
Well, in my community, the Jane Fringe community, I just thought about all the stigma and all the issues. Poverty, stigma, feeling marginalized, changing the image of the community, changing the way that young people felt in their community, changing the attitudes towards the community, empowering others in our community to also want to make changes. I felt like none of our leaders were able to do that because they've been around forever, and they also were folks that didn't really reflect what the community looks like. And the only way you can potentially make change is being a city councilor. So that's what I thought about.
As a Black woman taking a run at municipal politics, Tiffany did not have the odds in her favor. Research from the Canadian Municipal Barometer and Samara Center for Democracy shows that municipal politics is overwhelmingly older, white, and male. On average, 7 out of 10 municipal politicians are men. 7 out of 10 are over the age of 50. 9 out of 10 are white. By the time Tiffany was ready to run for Toronto City Council in 2018, she had spent her whole life witnessing how her community was being treated by elected officials, and it wasn't good. It was in 2018 when the city councilor representing her neighborhood, Giorgio Mammoliti, was asked by Rebel Media about quote-unquote thugs in community housing. This is what he said.
I see it like spraying down a building full of cockroaches. The cockroaches are just going to scatter, right? Yeah. So start evicting them.
Yes.
Let them scatter, because their particular strength is when they're all together in a community like Jane and Finch.
Yeah.
So my approach is going to be scatter them, evict them, get them out of Jane and Finch completely. I think we need to knock the buildings down completely.
You decide to move from school board trustee to a run for city council. Why?
Giorgio Mammoliti. Period. You know, if we had a city councilor that was doing the work and not dividing our community, I wouldn't care about becoming a city councilor, because it's not about me running for anything or becoming this, politician. I didn't care about that. I only cared about changes. And when you have, someone who's calling you cockroaches or it's just blatantly racist, how in the world are you going to be fighting for us? You're not, right?
What was your first thought when you heard the counselor call some of the people living at Jane and Finch cockroaches?
Well, obviously he was calling me a cockroach too, because I'm living in Toronto housing. Even as a school board trustee, I lived there, and for me, you can leave, and it was a thought, but I personally wanted to stay because I wanted to show people you can live and be in the community and also make changes. It definitely made me want to, first of all, call it out. And then secondly, empower others to vote.
I want to talk about campaigning to be a counselor. So by this time, you've already campaigned before to be a school board trustee and you succeeded. So this time around, what were the challenges that you faced?
The challenge was not doing everything by myself compared to what I did the last time. And, being able to find trustworthy people to help me. And I didn't have a problem making money, which was great because a lot of people wanted Giorgio Mammoliti out. So we made the maximum amount of money probably over online, like Twitter or something like that. At the end of it, I had over 600 donors, which is a lot of people. Social media, all that stuff was consistent. It was great. I still made my own strategies. I still even created some of my own things because I just felt like I knew what I wanted. I came up with the slogan, "Together We Can." I did the marketing. I really did. And I had a lot of people volunteering, which was great. And so some of the challenges was really more of the things I couldn't control, like, Doug Ford changing the game on us like a month before the election.
Okay, I'm going to cut in for a second here to give you some context. In 2018, aspiring city councillors in Toronto were already in campaign mode when Ontario Premier Doug Ford announced he would slash the number of Toronto city councillors almost in half, from 47 to 25. Could he do this? That was the big question. He argued that it would save the city money and it would streamline decision-making on city council. The city of Toronto argued that the change would cause, and I quote, disruption and confusion for candidates and voters. But Ford's plan went ahead. New ward boundaries were drawn, some wards were eliminated, and candidates had to reassess their campaigns. Some had to decide if it even made sense for them to run at all.
Doug Ford changing the game on us like a month before the election. So, fighting not just one, incumbent like Giorgio Mammoliti, but then also another one. And then, of course, Giorgio Mammoliti just being fiercely racist, like overtly racist, saying so many things, talking about how he can do more for Black people than our Black candidates, It was a lot. It was a lot. I can't even get into it. But anyways.
Working your way through that must have been difficult. Did you face any other issues during your campaigning, specifically campaigning as a Black woman?
Always. I mean, just being a Black woman with my name, Tiffany Ford, number one, people didn't really think that I was Black until I showed up at their door. Some people, maybe the Black people did, but some other people didn't realize that I was Black. Right?
Did they say that to you?
Absolutely. They were very frank about it. They're like, "Oh, I didn't know you're Black." And, yeah, I'm Black. Then they'd be like, "Oh, the funny thing is, are you related to Rob Ford?" It wasn't Doug Ford at the time, Rob Ford.
Rob Ford was Toronto's mayor from 2010 to 2014. His older brother, Doug, became Premier of Ontario in 2018. Those Fords aren't Black. They're white.
They just didn't understand my last name and the connection with Blackness. So depending on who I was talking to, I'm like, it's a slave name, if you want to really get down to it. So I felt like I was having lots of different conversations with people. Yeah, even mentioning slavery and talking about that. So that was interesting.
Black candidates, especially Black women, have to think strategically about how they present themselves. Women politicians' bodies and appearances are judged and scrutinized in the media and by the public more than the men. For Black women in politics, that includes judgments about their clothing, their skin tone, as in the closer to white, the better, and their hairstyle.
My hair was usually straight, meaning flat ironed, not chemical, but like straight for pictures, right? And depending on, when I'm campaigning, sweating, whatever, maybe it's curly. Like, it depends, right? Sometimes it's straight, sometimes it's curly, because that's how I wear my hair.
And was there a different treatment, do you think? Were you treated differently depending on how your hair was done?
Yeah, I would say so. I felt like straight hair was more, what's the word? Not friendly, but kind of like, not appeasing. What's the word for it? I'm trying to think of the word, but it was more...
Acceptable?
Acceptable, yeah. Or more non-confrontational, or not, that's not the word.
Professional?
I've heard professional multiple times, yeah. It's something I've learned as well, even in business, to be honest. You could be more liked with the straighter hair flowing, and then when your hair is in a bun or in its natural curly state, it's like different.
Was there any other discrimination that you
Being
noticed?
a female, for sure. Oh, I'm going to vote for you because you're so pretty. Or, always are you single? Do you have children? Are you married? When are you having children? What does your man think about this? What is it like? Or the not taking me seriously. Oh, you're so much younger. Or it's just a constant kind of preparation when you're about to knock on the door. And depending on the community that you're going to knock on the door, you kind of have to prepare yourself mentally and emotionally because it's so draining. So that was also another major hurdle in the community. There was a lot of oh, why should I vote? It's going to be the same people. Or why should I vote? It's like, they don't do nothing for us anyways. So why should I vote? Just very
And what was your answer to that?
Why you should vote. Depending on where they live, I can talk about the different issues that are happening, right? Could be they're going to bring more condos here, right? Or the LRT was a big deal, right? It's not finished yet, but having the LRT here, who brought it here, right? Mm-hmm. And some of the things that I've noticed is a lot of seniors being lonely, and doing things for people, even though I was campaigning, helping people with getting groceries, little things like that. For me, it wasn't about them voting for me. It was more like, it sucks that no one's knocking at your door like the actual candidate to see the issues that you're going through, because a lot of people just needed someone to talk to, and they never had anyone who knocked on their door and was interested in listening to them. And so even as a school board trustee, sort of transitioning, I was still a school board trustee, right? And running, being able to just talk about the school system or things that they needed help with. That was a good thing. Like, I knew a lot about the school system for people who needed help with that. So sometimes when I was knocking on the door, they had a whole list of issues that they needed help with. And I would really, really talk about that.
And with the Black folks that you saw at the door when you were door knocking, did you feel supported by them?
Overall, yes.
What do you mean by overall?
Overall, yes. Because, I mean, to be honest, if someone knocked on my door and I wasn't running, like just in general, I may feel like, girl, you ain't gonna win. You're Black. You know Mama Lady's there forever. Like, why? Why are you even doing this to yourself?
Is that like the energy that they gave?
Some people, for sure. You know you're Black.
And they said that too.
Some people. I had one guy who, to this day, and it's weird, I just recently saw him, who told me to drop out of the race. Like, my first campaign, he told me, drop out of the race. He's a Black man from our community. And if I listened to him, I wouldn't have been anywhere, and basically wanted me to give it to, a non-Black person, a male. And I'm just like, for what? Why? I thought you were, pro-Black. I thought you were like interested in like getting our community changed.
Do you think that Black community members should support Black people who are running?
Absolutely. We always should. But sometimes we can't be blind as well. Like, it can't just be because someone's Black, to be honest. It has to be someone who's willing to do the work, someone who's passionate, someone who's like, might have the background of proving themselves to be, someone who is not just capable, but trustworthy, and someone who's willing to push Black people along or also support others. I know financially, I got more support outside of my community. I had friends I couldn't even rely on to knock on doors with me. So no, you should not expect that at all. It'd be nice to expect it. But I think you just have to really think about what you're doing this for and realize not everyone's going to support you. Like, you just have to really hone into what your goal is and realize it's really you that can make this change. Really you that needs to do it. It's really you that has to connect with the voters.
So what happened in the election?
Well, I didn't win. I didn't win as city councilor, but I had a phenomenal campaign and I'm very proud of it. My campaign was really successful as a councilor campaign. It was considered like the most mentioned, I think, on social media, more than any of the councilors or even the mayor. And I started Ford Global Group, which I still have. And so I really wanted to focus on making the same changes, doing advocacy work, but in a way where it's more about strategy and not me being a politician.
So what is the one thing specifically that you are really proud that you did?
The one thing. Whoa, that's a lot. I think the one thing that I'm really proud of is showing young people in my community that I can still live here and still win an election, still be a trustee, still living in the community, and still run for city council, still living in the community. I think showing people in my community that you can be that change.
Thank you, Tiffany. It was great talking to you.
Thank you. It was great.
Tiffany Ford is all about her community. And remember she said she was first inspired by seeing her school trustee when she was a young student? Representation matters. You have to see it to be it. So let me tell you about two more trailblazing Black women who actually came before Tiffany in politics. You could say they paved a path for her. There is the Honorable Jean Augustine, who served in politics up until 2015. Augustine was the first Black woman in Parliament elected as a Liberal in 1993. From 1994 to 96, she served as Parliamentary Secretary to Prime Minister Jean Chrétien.
I think that this won't happen today, but in those days, the whole notion of a woman, a Black woman, an immigrant woman holding that position was something that, and I have some interesting stories, things that happen where you are always mistaken to be either the clerk for somebody or the secretary to somebody. And that didn't happen in Parliament itself. It's usually on the outside. I remember going to one country, and they were holding the elevator waiting for the minister. And when I got there with my staff and the ambassador and every, little entourage, and I proceeded to the elevator, I was told, no, you can't. We're holding the elevator for the minister. Can't go in. Holding the elevator for the minister. And my staff had to jump in and say, she is the minister. But you don't allow those things to dampen the work that you have to do.
That was Jean Augustine, who entered politics after a career in education at the age of 56. She played a vital role in Canada's recognition of February as Black History Month. And her influence doesn't stop there. In 2003, when a new Liberal leader and Prime Minister came to power, he brought on new ministers, and Jean Augustine wasn't one of them. Her exclusion was a catalyst for the community members who would go on to found Operation Black Vote Canada. Their goal was to create an organization that would support Black political civic engagement, and that's exactly what they've been doing for 20 years. Now I want you to listen to Zanana Akande. If we go back 30 years, Zanana was a new Democratic member of Provincial Parliament in Ontario from 1990 to 1994. She was also the first Black woman to serve as a cabinet minister in Canada. So when she has advice, you'll want to listen.
I don't give a damn about being different from everyone else. If I believe that something's right or that something's wrong, and that I can speak to it, not that my voice is going to automatically make a change, but at least my voice will bring it to somebody's attention. It may be irritating. I know that there may be a lot of people that avoid me, but nevertheless, it's important. And if it's important enough, maybe somebody else will pick up the idea. Black people who are currently elected, I'd say look in your party platform for the last election. Whatever the party is, look in the platform and say how that benefits us and how it benefits working class people, because that's the issue. And sitting there, they'll use you as their symbol of tolerance. And if that's not what you're there for, you got to open your mouth and do some work.
You got to open your mouth and do some work. I would buy that t-shirt. Thank you, Zanana Akande and Jean Augustine, for lending your voices to this project and for paving the way. And of course, thank you to Tiffany Ford. This podcast was produced by Media Girlfriends for Carleton University and Operation Black Vote Canada. The show was produced by Garvia Bailey. Executive producers are Garvia Bailey and Hannah Sung. Additional production assistance from Joyce Tran and Aaron Tolley. Research was led by Aaron Tolley with assistance from Taryn Rary, Brittany Andrews, Chantel Jeremiah, and Caitlin Gallant. And our sound engineer is Reza Daya. Funding for this podcast comes from the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, Carleton University, the Canada Research Chairs Program, and the University of Toronto Scarborough. In-kind support was provided by the Samara Centre for Democracy to Carleton University. Special thanks to Velma Morgan, Wendell Agite, and Wisdom Tete. This episode includes a clip from Rebel Media. Black on the Ballot is a companion to Black Canadians in Electoral Politics, a research partnership between Carleton University and Operation Black Vote Canada. Again, you can find out more about the research at blackcanadianpolitics.ca. Learn about Operation Black Vote Canada at obvc.ca. We'd love for you to share, subscribe, and spread the word. I'm Nanaba Duncan. Thank you for listening.